Hi everyone, welcome to Lesson 9, Game Reviews of NPA Games Development. We're going to start off with two little screenshots from two different types of games. What I would like you to do is pause the video and consider what you think the game type for both of these is, the console type they might be used on, and their genre. Okay, hopefully you've had a little bit of time to think about that. Let's start off with the one on the left. So the one on the left is a puzzle game. It's called Simon's Cat, Candy Crush or Candy Pop or something like that, can't really remember. The type of console it's played on is most likely to be on either a smartphone or a tablet. You can tell that from the fact that it's got all these sections that you can interact with nice and easily, large clickable buttons for being used with a finger rather than being used with a cursor. And obviously the movement of that is similar to quite a lot of other puzzle games you may have seen of that kind of type. The genre of that isn't necessarily clear. It could be animals, it's quite cartoony, it could be designed for kids, it's quite playful. But animal would certainly be a kind of genre that could go under, being that it looks like it's about cats and cat treats. If we move over to the picture on the right hand side, you can see that it is a screenshot from, I think it's Happy Hospital, similar to Theme Hospital back from the 90s. Its game type is simulation, so you're simulating that you own a hospital. The console it's played on predominantly would potentially be could be laptops, desktops. Some of them might be available on games consoles, or in turn, some of them nowadays you can even get access to on your phone by pinching and pulling, zooming and using some of the gesture things to move about. But usually that would have been played back in my day, certainly on PC, laptop. And the genre of that obviously is hospital. Medical is the theme that it comes under, and you could guess that obviously by guessing that it's a hospital, looking how the way people are dressed. Also, you can see on the top right hand side we've got information about health inspectors, visiting wards, etc, etc. So that was something just to get your juices flowing. Let's start off with today's lesson. So today we're talking about game reviews. Hopefully by the end of today's period you're going to be able to view different game review ratings and understand what they mean. You're going to review two games against a rating system that I've created, and then you're going to create a review rating to review that game against, alright? So, game reviews come in many different forms, but they'll often include most of the following features. So usually you'll get a short description of the narrative of what the game is. Now, that obviously is dependent on the game type. If you have a very simplistic game like Pac-Man, there's not going to be a huge amount of writing of the narrative, but in turn, if you're talking about a much larger game like Assassin's Creed or any of the GTAs and things like that, then there might be a lot more complex narrative behind there. So it'll usually give you some sort of description of what the game's about without any spoilers. It will then tell you, give you some sort of rating system. Now this could be a score out of 5, it could be a score out of 100, it could be based on a number of stars. They all look different, and we'll have a look at some so you can see kind of how they're broken down and what they look like. And some of them could be really quite complex and others much more simplistic. We'll then talk a little bit about some of the game mechanics usually, and if any of those are particularly good or bad, and if people are liking them as maybe additions to the game, or whether they're not happy with the game mechanics, if it makes the game feel clunky or if it doesn't work well. It'll also discuss probably any special features that have been put in to make that game different from others. That could be for good or bad, so quite a lot of the time if it's an app that's being reviewed, it might talk about the fact that it's got in-app purchases, and a lot of people don't like that, where it can trick you into spending money, or kids certainly if they're spending money on apps that they play for upgrades and things. One of the things that it'll also do is quite a lot of comparisons to either games that are similar to it, or it will compare it to upgrades of its previous counterparts. So if it's games that are long-standing like GTA, Call of Duty, even things like Red Dead Redemption, when you're referring back to a previous version, Assassin's Creed, all those types of games that have been around for years and years now, they will usually compare it back to its previous counterpart and say what things have they upgraded and what things have they made better, perhaps from some of the reviews that came out from the game before. Now these will usually be ranked in order with lists of other games, so when you look at game review websites, you'll quite often find different games, and they might be organised in popularity, they might be organised in release date, and they might be organised in game types. Every game website works slightly differently, and hopefully today, over the course of the next few days, you'll get a chance to have a little look at some. So I went online and had a little look at some of the different reviews of games that you could get. So some of them were like, for example, news articles. So you can see here there was a news article about Fall Guys when it first came out, giving it a 4.5, 5 out of 5 stars. That was more of a news article, so it didn't have as much statistics. You can see up here we've got a game, Aurelia's Escape, being reviewed, and that's just on Google with people giving it a out of 5-star rating. Again, not a lot of additional information about that. We can then come on to where we're talking about things like Steam, where people obviously are really into gaming and download games and then do quite a lot of feedback and have more statistics in there. So here you can see there's 65,000, just about and a half reviews, most of which were positive, and it tells you a little bit about some of the information if you drill into it. And then over here we've got 3 different gaming review websites that I went on. You can see each of them has their own system. So down here we've scored a score out of 10, and it'll have more additional information underneath. Here it had ranking, so Last of Us Part 2 was ranked as number 1 when I searched this, and you could expand down the information and get more. It gave a final score out of 100, and then you were able to drill down and find out where that score came from. And then the last website here, and I'll give you all the names of these later, this was giving you a score out of 100 as well, and it gave you quite a little kind of like information about it, which was quite nice, and little snapshots about what it was about. And again here, kind of the things you would see on like the billboards or the packaging or the posting, to be able to say that a game was good or not. So these are some different websites that I looked at, and you can see that all of them very, very different, and some more simplistic and some a lot more complicated, and perhaps got a lot more reviews in them, depending on where they are as well and who utilises them. So your tasks this week are going to split up into a couple of parts. The first thing I'd like you to do is to choose a random game from the current top 20. So one that is in the top 20. If you just Google top 20 games in the market 2023, you'll be able to find a list of 20 games. You can either just choose one that you like the look of or you know a little bit about, or if you prefer, you can literally just go into a random number generator and generate a random number between 1 and 20, and then choose that one. But what I want you to do when you've picked your game, so let's just say, for example, you get given, I don't know, the latest Assassin's Creed. Okay, let's just say that you are going to go on to as many different web pages as you can, review web pages. It doesn't have to just be the ones that I've got listed here. And I want you to have a look, and what you're actually reviewing is not the game. The game could be good or bad. It could be something you're really into. It could be something that you're totally not into. But what you're reviewing is the game web pages. And I want you to also see whether the game has been rated similarly across the different web pages. Is it always a 90 out of 100, a 9 out of 10 game? Because they should be fairly popular, being that they're in the current top 20 games in the market. But again, you might find some discrepancies based on where you're looking. Okay, so I want you to go around and have a look at all different types of review websites, and then what I want you to do is to actually decide which review website you like the best and why, and I'll show you the task sheet for that in just a wee second. Okay, once you've done that, you're then moving on to a second task where I want you to review 2 games, a poor game and a bad game. So I've came up with an example rating system, which is something you'll need to do as part of your outcome, and you can see that I've decided that my games are going to be rated out of 1 to 10. 1 Sword being an unbearable game and being terrible to play, and then 10 Swords being an absolute masterpiece and something that you would want to play again and again, even if it was a really large game. Okay, now you want to think about as well when you're talking about a review, not just like a 1 to 10, but what makes a 1 game and what makes a 10 game. Because when you're reviewing a game, you should almost be able to write as much about a bad game as you are about a good game, because you're commenting on all the same things, but perhaps saying they haven't done something as well compared to something that's really good. So let's start off with things like narrative, okay? An unbearable rubbish game might have no narrative. In turn, you could have a really good game that's got no narrative, because it could just be really, addictive, like things like Flappy Bird, for example. But so I've decided that an unbearable game for me is no narrative, but a really good masterpiece would have a really gripping storyline that makes me want to continue to play it again and again. Okay, and then again, an unbearable game or one that I don't like would be one that's really quick to complete, whereas I like to play a game that I can get my teeth into and play a little bit more. And as I go on, you can see I've got a lack of differentiated game mechanics, or I've got lots of game mechanics. The good things would be the designs match the game genre. It makes sense to me. The character customization customization is nice. I like to be able to do that to get more involved with the characters I play. There's a lot of user choice in it. So I've put kind of on this right hand side things that I think make up a masterpiece game, and yours might be different to me, and that's okay. But I still want you to think about, to you, what's unbearable and what makes a masterpiece. And then what you're going to do is you're going to review 2 games. And I particularly want you to try and choose a game that is good and try and choose a game that is not being rated good. Okay, now you can use the review web pages to help you try and find a game that's good or not good. And then I want you to fill out 2 parts to this, a good review and a bad review. So you're effectively going to have 3 bits of web pages to fill out there. Now what I've done on this PowerPoint, which you'll have access to, is I've created a little link there to a useful web page which helps you come up with a game review and how to write it. This is mine, obviously, which is particularly large. They don't have to be as long as this. But that's what a kind of thing I want you to create, is think about, this one was a 10 out of 10 star. This one was just a 3 out of 10 star, or I should say swords. Okay, so that's your second part of your task. There's going to be 3 things to complete. Let me show you what they look like. So, if we minimise this, here are your 2 tasks. The first one you're going to be given is this. So it's game review web pages. You need to decide which one you prefer and copy and paste the URL into the first box. Then try and create a list of things they include. So do they include, a short description of the narration? Do they give a score out of 100 or a score out of 10 or a score out of 10 swords or a score out of 5 stars? What sort of additional information do they give? And you can include screenshots in there if you want to support that, but create a wee list of the things you'd expect to find in each of the reviews about your the game that's being reviewed. And then down here, I want you to put some notes in about why you preferred this review page over others. So what did this one give you? If you were looking to buy this game that you were allocated out of 1 out of 20, why would you want to buy it? What made that review the best one to look at? And it could be that actually you've realised it's told you that it's not a good game, and you think the game review site's good because it's been really honest with its feedback. That's also great. Okay, so on the left, that's task 1 that you're going to get. And that's to create a game review, and that'll be assigned on Teams. The second one, you'll get 2 copies of this form. So you're going to choose whatever your game name was, that's your good game, what console it's predominantly played on. That could be Xbox, PlayStation, it could be a PC game, it could be an app, it doesn't matter, it's up to you. And then you start off with your 10 swords, and your task would just be to delete them to the number of source that you get to. So one of your games might be 9 out of 10, the other one might be 1 or 2 out of 10, okay? And here, you're going to pop in your game review. Now that will expand to the size that you need it, okay? So it could be really, really big. It's entirely up to you. My one for my good games spanned over a few pages because I actually just copy and pasted different little bits from different web pages and put it all together to create my own report, okay? As long as you're not copying a whole review of a web page and throwing it in, and you're actually putting some effort into kind of, why has that game from different web pages been reviewed as good, then that's absolutely fine. Under the image, or I should say the images section, what I would like you to do is pop in some images to support anything you've talked about. So if you've said in here, for example, that the game you're reviewing has really good has really good character customization, then you want to maybe have a screenshot of that underneath, okay? If there's specific game mechanics that make the game really good, so for example, it's a new game and you like the fact that you're able to swim in that, you weren't able to swim in previous increments of the game, then perhaps a picture of that to support underneath would be fab. I would say probably a wee minimum of maybe 4 images underneath there, just to support what it is you're talking about. Now, obviously, that's quite a big task and it can be quite hard, so what I've done for you, and I'll attach this to the assignment in Teams, is I have given you a couple of examples to look at. Okay, so these are sort of as big as I want them to make. Don't make them any bigger than this. So you can see my poor game was Fast and Furious Crossroads. It's played on the PS4. I gave it 3 out of 10 swords. And then this is the information I wrote about it. And to support that, I put 4 images to support what it was that I was talking about car customization and the type of view and things that you got. Different types of transport you get. Now, it doesn't mean because your review of your game is 3 out of 10 swords that you can't actually talk about some of the good aspects about it too. You don't have to say everything negative, but you have to kind of go between the two. Then for my good game, I've done exactly the same. This time I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, I think it's 9 out of 10 swords actually, and it's played on the Xbox One. For the most part, I've actually played this game, so I was able to write a bit more about it. But again, talks about the narrative and stuff like that, and then some of the different mechanics. Some of the games it's compared to, so you can see it there talking about The Witcher, and some of the games that kind of maybe some of the things are the same. And again, that's the maximum I would be expecting anybody to write. That's information that I've put together that explain some of the stuff we've been talking about, some of the fighting, some of the game mechanics, the fact you can light flares, etc, etc. Okay, so 3 different things to hand in this week, so lots to be working on at home. Give me a shout if you need any help with anything, and hopefully that all makes sense. I'll speak to you guys later. Bye.